Welcome back to the Winner's Circle. I'm here with Daniel Ziv. He is the Global VP of AI and Analytics for Verint. And you may have heard of Verint. They're the guys that sit and collect. Well, they don't collect. They work for your customers and they analyze all your call center data. And so they're looking at all your customer service metrics and really producing some interesting results. They have just won an award from Business Intelligence Group for their Genie Bot. And so we're going to talk to Daniel about that. Welcome, Daniel. Why don't you give us a little bit about you and a little bit about Verint and GenieBot?
Thank you. First of all, it's an honor to be here. Thanks. This is exciting. And a little bit about me. I joined Verint about 23 years ago in 2002. So it's been a long journey, amazing, exciting journey. And I was part of the team that developed, our first speech analytics solution, which was, at the time pioneering. There was really no speech analytics market. We believe that with all this data, we recorded all these interactions in the contact center. When you hear this call may be recorded, that was in most cases Verint, and we analyzed that. We basically realized that this is full of such amazing insights that we decided to transcribe that data, index it, and really created a whole. Not just a product, but today it's the whole category. And that's been very successful. We've been leaders in that area. And ever since I joined, I was involved in that area, expanding it to other areas of real-time analytics and text analytics and automated of, quality, a lot of different areas that stem from that, but it starts from the data itself. I've also had the opportunity to work in different regions. Verint's a global company, so I managed our business for analytics in Asia Pacific for 5 years until COVID hit, and then I kind of came back. And now we've recently been acquired by Thoma Brava, which for $2 billion. It's been a kind of an exciting couple of months.
Congratulations.
Just closed. And just lately, Genie was just launched last year. And it really was, to leverage generative AI in this area of analytics, really to take it a step further. So really excited about this award. And as just a word about Verint itself, we have been a public company for the last couple of decades. Now we're private. We consider ourselves as the leader in, customer experience management and experience automation. So we automate the workflows that really drive customer experience, not just in the contact center, but in the entire customer facing and also the back office that support that customer facing interactions. We capture it, we analyze it, we use that data to schedule and organize the entire the team that support. And the goal is to reduce the cost, increase the revenue, and provide the best customer experience possible.
Yeah, and for anybody who's not aware, with the data center, or the call center went through this huge evolution, 20 years ago or so, when the internet came on and everybody went through digital transformation, I think we called it back then. And, everything got digitized, but we had all this data. I don't know, as a marketer, I would look at, all our, sales reports and look at all those, and analyze calls from customer service perspective. But it was a pain in the neck to get into, you had to request permission, then you had to learn a new system. And I think what you guys have done is kind of turn that on its head and really kind of democratize the whole thing with the Genie.
Right. Absolutely. I think Genie is unique in several aspects, and I think it's really not just Verint's strategy, but really the strategy of what companies I think are doing. So everybody has access to AI. AI is no longer a differentiator. We all can use Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever models you're using. The models overall are getting better anyways, and to some extent almost commoditizing. It doesn't really matter so much which model you're using. What matters much more is what data you're feeding that model. And we have all that, what we call behavioral data. So the interactions themselves, the feedback, the surveys, the performance data that drove that outcome, what was the agent doing, what they were saying, all that is really, that's what I call your behavioral data moat. So that's something that your competitors don't have access to. They have access to the same models you have, potentially, but they don't have that unique data. If you can leverage that unique data, and it's not always all that data, it's the most relevant data to that particular workflow or question you're asking. And that's what Genie does. It leverages that unique data, leverages the best models available today. Tomorrow, it might be a different model, but it's very interchangeable, and provides insights in literally seconds. So what as you said, would used to take hours or days or weeks to analyze, listen to calls, to figure out, slice and dice, and you'd still get amazing insights, but it would take weeks.
Oh,
Now, if you
it was
do
a
that,
pain.
yeah, and you also need analysts. Now you can do that, really democratize it. You could do it in seconds and minutes and hours. And if you get that insight and also have a platform that allows you to take action, so you see that you can change your IVA or IVR, or you can change the coaching agents get in real time, or you can change knowledge articles based on the latest insights, you then really move away from the pack. Your competitors don't have this unique insights. If you're doing it and they're not, that creates a huge differentiation. I would say more than differentiation, it's going to end up being a survival tactic or strategy where those who don't do it will just won't be able to keep up because this, you know, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's becoming too easy now. I've seen it on
Yeah,
our side of the business. We run a Best Places to Work awards program, and as part of that, we run an employee survey, and each company runs their own survey, and we look at the data and we aggregate the data. uh, you know, a year ago, we would put that into ChatGPT and it would choke on it.
right,
And
right, right, right.
and now I put that same data in a couple months ago,
Yeah,
and it spits out a McKinsey report on, how happy my employees are.
right.
And so we've come so far so quickly.
Yeah,
And you're right, the data's there. You have to have access to it,
right,
and B, you got to analyze it. And it used to be really, really almost, at scale, very, very difficult to do. And
right.
AI is just really going to transform that.
There's one more aspect that I think people talk a lot about when we talk about AI is really so you get this insight, but people still want to verify it. AI
Hmm.
can still hallucinate, could still, and people want to be sure before they're going to actually make any changes that impact the customer experience. They want to be sure. And Genie automatically identifies everything Genie says comes with quotes from the actual source. And the source might be a phone call or an interaction, and it brings you that. So immediately I can validate that this insight is not some hallucination. And that's another really important. It also links back to I have the data, all the historical data to bring that source. But that gives confidence to the organization to move ahead. And I think that allowed us to deploy Genie very quickly and people to trust the insights, and really see millions of dollars of ROI impact to cost to revenue to CX within days, not within months or
Yeah.
years. And again, that creates a huge advantage. And I think those elements of using the right data, validating the insights, and then being able to take action quickly is really what made Genie so successful.
Yeah, and I think, like you're saying, this is an iterative process, right? This is not you tune it once and forget it. This is an iterative process because the dynamics of the market are changing, the dynamics of your customer base are changing. So you're doing this all the time. And again, when I was doing it, you had to dedicate time to it. We didn't have an analyst, so I would dedicate, an hour or two a week to go review calls, review interactions. And you only got so far. You'd get through, I don't know, 5 or 10 if you're lucky. And so it's just the scale isn't realistic. You're
Right.
getting the world's smallest sample.
And that's also an issue because the small sample means that this insight may be anecdotal, may not represent the biggest opportunity. And Genie can crunch 500 interactions in a split second, and that's very different. So that gives you statistical validity, and you're making sure, well, if 500 people said that, that's not just anecdotal, that means something. And you can actually analyze, the background, the speech analytics, we transcribe 100% of your calls. And that, again, that's another issue is that people tend to make gut feelings, get decisions based on their gut, I heard one customer complain about this. And I'm not saying that's not important, but that may not be the most important thing just because somebody sent, we have these things where, a CEO got an email or some kind of escalation on social media and the whole company is shifting towards something that just might be a loud, famous person, not necessarily something that
Yeah.
represents the majority of customers.
Somebody needs a pat on the back.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So I see this role of analyst, right? That's kind of what I was doing, is
Right,
analyzing the results. And that's what you're really kind of eliminating.
right.
And You're not eliminating the analyst, you're eliminating the bottleneck of the capacity of the analyst,
Exactly.
which is really important, because
Yeah.
this is the same problem. I always use this example, but it's the same problem everybody predicted in healthcare with radiologists. They said
Yeah.
radiologists are going to be gone.
Right.
And what's actually happened is there's more radiologists now with
Right.
AI. And it's the same with the analysts. The analysts were the bottleneck. And now that you have unlimited capacity, the analysts can actually analyze and, do strategic thinking, not just pulling reports.
It does. I agree. We haven't eliminated the analysts. The analysts are really important. And in general, in the era of AI, it's about driving that Ferrari AI car you just bought. You still need that, except you can go much faster. So an analyst could produce 10 times more insights, so they can analyze many more things. And in the past, let's do analysis on customer churn. We'll do it once a year. That's great, but you could do it once a week.
Right.
And things change. The reason for churn changes. The market is changing much faster, so you need to respond much faster. And this allows for that flexibility with the same amount of analysts, sometimes even with less analysts. But the analyst is still an important role. We do see it, the analyst only does part of that workflow. The next step is taking action and changes. And what we'll see actually this year, we're expanding Genie to something more agentic. Genie already has some agentic capabilities, but we're going to go even further by automating the actions that Genie takes, which sometimes go beyond the analyst and it goes into the team. That's usually when things get stuck because, there's politics, there's organizational hierarchies, there's just getting the data and proving it to the other department, getting their buy-in, and that could slow things down. So we're taking that next step this year and it going even further.
Well, you've kind of mentioned this kind of operationalizing the insights, right? You're taking the data, analyzing it through the Genie, and then giving it to practice, putting it in practice. What does that mean to a customer like day to day? What are you seeing them, take from Genie and go implement?
So right now, what we're seeing, Genie generates the insights and actually automates, for example, a PowerPoint presentation. So I spent all this time listening to calls, but now I have to create a PowerPoint and present it to my executives. We automate that already, and now you have that deck with all the insights, all the proof points, and that's happening today. And again, like we've had customers here. I have some examples I pulled up. Global service company that generated $6.5 million within days of deploying Genie. Another UK financial or international financial organization where they generate $5 million, again, within days. What we've done is we've turned Genie on for a couple of days just to get them, give them a chance to look at it. And this is consistent. Almost every customer, another customer generated $2 million by just, it's a utility and, identifying energy questions that could, reduce their costs. So that's what we're seeing today. But there's still the next bottleneck is like implementing those changes and Genie helps with that, but we're going to take it further this year by being able to, with human oversight, actually leverage the rest of the Verint platform, which really has all these bots, over 50 different bots that all are part of the CX or customer experience. It's not one product. There's self-service, there's assisted service, there's back office support, there's scheduling, there's quality. All these bots that do specific things, Genie can start, sending those insights and actually making those changes, rolling it back if there's a problem, validating the ROI. So it's going to be really exciting, and that's going to just create such an amazing competitive differentiator that if you don't do this, you just won't be able to keep up.
Well, I agree with you 1,000,000%. And what's changed that is I think is kind of that interface to business data,
Yeah,
right? And it's the same that in our house, right? We have this new interface, which is effectively voice. It's natural language, right? We're speaking to things. We're
yeah,
talking to, I won't say any names because of things going off in my house.
yeah,
But right, that is now the interface to
yeah.
these systems. It's natural language or typing or whatever, and we don't have to know what our answer seizure rate was,
Right.
and
Yeah.
we just have to ask questions like, "How am I doing? What's this? Which team's the best? Which team's the worst? How are they performing? Why are they performing that way?" You just ask those questions, and that really goes into how if you can have those conversations with your data now, as weird as that is to say, um, it's going to radically change how you make decisions. How are you seeing that with your customers as they get this get these kind of new insights. How is that kind of changing how their decision flows are made in the enterprise?
I think this really helps because sometimes I had a recent interview where people said, there's two kind of errors in decision making. One is that people think that they know the answer, they have the gut feeling, and they don't have enough data. So they just make that decision without the data because because time is the essence, right? Sometimes I have to make a decision right now. I don't know I have the decision, either because I believe I know the answer or because I just don't have time. I make a decision that may not be optimal. The other one is that I'm very data driven. I'm waiting for the perfect data. I want analysis. I'm waiting weeks for my teams to give me all the data before I make the decision. But no matter how good that decision is, it comes in too late. By switching that, by allowing me to, like you said, with natural voice, ask my question, I can now ask anything. And kind of like in the personal life today, if there's something I don't know, you just go to ChatGPT or Gemini, whatever you're using. And even though it's not always perfect, it gives me a lot more confidence with my gut feel. Was
Hmm.
this the right decision? Whether it's a tax issue, a legal issue, a medical issue, I use it all the time personally. Now organizations don't do as much because they need access to their organizational data and they need those tools to be embedded. And that's what, again, Genie and the Verint platform, it's sitting on the organizational data, allows you to ask those natural questions and get answers in seconds. So you don't have to make a suboptimal decision because you don't have the data. The data is already there. You just need those tools to give you those insights. And that either reaffirms what your gut feeling was or totally, if it's totally different than what you thought, then you're going to pause for a second and say, wait, maybe my gut is wrong. Maybe something has changed here. So I think it helps decision making. That it's still data driven, but it's much faster. And again, you don't have to balance the two. Should I make a fast decision or a
Right.
data driven decision? It's a fast data driven decision, and usually it's much more optimal and generates much greater outcomes.
Yeah, and I imagine I imagine your customers are starting to uncover some interesting things like I have. I started feeding that kind of banking information and got some interesting results. You're like,
Absolutely.
yeah. So are you hearing some of these, kind of unconventional findings where, kind of those traditional means just never would have uncovered,
Yeah, it's
that,
amazing. One of the first workshops we did, I was on site with the customer, and they heard all these complaints about the website. People, they sign up for the subscription, and then the first time they want to pay, they get into this online loop of opening up their new account, and it's really a critical moment. The first interaction you have with a new you know, vendor that you're using, if you can't make that payment, you basically churn before you even you become a customer because it seems so annoying and you don't have you don't have anything to lose, right? Because you're just joining. And they weren't aware of it. It was basically a bug in
yeah,
the website. They weren't even aware that they had this problem. Genie just identified that in a split second. And it's not like
wow,
it happens all the time to all customers, but it's large enough that it was a key issue. And within seconds, they saw, "Like, we have all these calls about this issue mentioning the website. It's mostly about this first payment." And then they replicated it. And so that's the kind of things that sometimes you're not even aware of an issue. And if you are aware of an issue, then it really gives you the insights, the validation and the examples to really drive the change to make that, to fix it or make it operational change that needs to happen.
yeah. It's I think what's amazing is how far we've come in such a short period of time, the last kind of 24 to 18 to 24 months. And you've kind of been at the helm of this thing because you've seen it all. I think at Variant, kind of this digital transformation, like we were talking about, and and then kind of now the fourth, data revolution of AI.
Yeah.
The biggest misconception that enterprises still have about generative AI and how it's going to impact their organization.
I think the misconception is it's not, it really is not it, what we've been doing all the time for the last 20 years. People have been using data. So it's not like you have to change everything. You could do what you've been doing. It's just you could do it much faster, much more automated. You can augment the tedious, long time tasks. It's not as transformative as you might think in the sense that it's not like you have to throw away everything you have and start anew. But if you don't leverage it and learn it. It's really adopting it in a way. It's never going to be perfect. It's going to get better and better, and there's always going to be risks. But you have to adopt it, and you have to learn by quickly using it. I think the biggest misconception is, let's just wait and see. Let's do
Yeah.
internal pilots and internal, let's take some fake data and play with it and see what happens. And it's not a game. This is the new reality. It's like, when, mobile internet came along, you had to adopt it. Otherwise, you can't operate like everybody else, not at the speed that everybody has. So AI is an enabler, like the mobile phone, the iPhone. It's not just a better telephone. It transformed, it created new business models, new business services. Look at Uber, how it transformed
Oh, yeah.
public transportation or taxis or whatever,
It was cultural.
it's cultural. So I think AI has a huge impact, but it's about adopting it with your data in your environment quickly. And if you fail fast and learn from it. And that's good. That's a good thing. And I think the misconception is it's not perfect yet. It has risks, which is true. So let's just wait and mess around with it, play with it. I think that's the misconception, because by the time you figure it out and you think it's good enough, the rest of your competitor, at least some of your competitors, have moved far, far beyond, and you just won't catch up.
Yeah, and it's like we talked about it before. You do have to just keep iterating at it, because it's constantly shifting and changing, and customers' expectations are shifting. I think they're definitely on the rise as AI comes on board. Customers are expecting more out of these systems, and for you to be able to offer services without talking to an agent that are reliable. How do you see, Genie Bot changing, and AI in general changing CX over the next, year or so?
What I think will happen is, at least some will adopt these technologies faster and provide such better experience that it will become unacceptable to, I still had, over the weekend, I was trying to call my cable company to make changes, and I had to basically went through a terrible chat experience, then eventually waited for an hour to get a live agent. It'll just be unacceptable. In the past, people said, well, everybody's bad, so it doesn't matter. People accepted bad service, accepted a terrible experience, because you didn't have a choice. Once you have a choice, a significant different choice, you just won't accept it. And I think that's going to be, and again, if you haven't done, we know how operationally challenging analyzing or managing a million or millions of interactions every day. So if you're not set up to be so much more efficient, you just won't be able to compete. I think the expectations of customers are just going to soar, and what we've seen already. People complain that, oh, we invest all this in technology and we hire more people and our CX scores go down. It's not because you are providing worse service than you did before. It's because your competitors are providing better service right now than you are. And the expectations are based on the highest bar, not on what you historically did. And I think that speed of change is going to be accelerated. Once you have such a seamless experience and you interact and they know exactly what you want and they respond, immediately and make the changes, and there's no frustration, that becomes your norm. That's not
Right.
oh, you did such a great job. That's what I expect now. And if I don't get it, then I
It's
just won't.
weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's gonna not work with anybody who doesn't provide that.
Well, so now you mentioned kind of a more agentic AI approach for Genie Bot coming up in the year. What's on the roadmap that you can share with us?
So, I can't share too much, but generally the concept of agentic analytics, which has been talked about, is we have the advantage that we're already embedded in the organizational, we have all this data. So we can slice and dice every single combination, identify the most, impactful changes, take action, actually make those changes and monitor the impact. So it's really transformative. CX starts improving by itself, basically, with oversight, with human oversight, but that there's no limits of how much better you can get. As long as there is something that you can improve, we can identify what that is. We can actually take the action and drive those changes. And that's what we're working on. We're already working in some pre-release capabilities. We discussed our Spikebot, which is something we launched in a pre-release program, which, when there's a spike in call volumes, we can analyze that and figure out what's driving it, and again, take action to solve that. So all these challenges that we had operationally that we had to manually figure out and manually do, the that's what agentic AI will or agentic analytics will do, and actually make make managing these very complex CX workflows much more efficient, much more automated, and again create that competitive gap.
Well, Daniel, I look forward to better CX conversations for sure. They have definitely gotten better over the years with
They
with
have,
technology. I mean,
yeah,
it is a radically different
yeah.
landscape than it used to be, which is good for all of us. So thank you, Variant, and thank you, Daniel, for the work in AI, and congratulations again on the award. If for those of you don't know, and Daniel had some questions earlier, our awards programs are democratized and they're transparent, meaning that we're not judging it. We don't have a panel of judges who sit around a table and pick winners. It's actually thousands of judges who are in pools who score your nominations and provide really kind of expert level feedback on your nomination for product leaders like Daniel. And so, you have 20 to 40 people reading and scoring your nomination every time. And these are product leaders from the world's largest companies, and they're all on the website. So go over to beintelligence.com and click on the judges tab, and you can see all of them. So we always thank our judges because they're really what makes this work and what makes it kind of unique and transparent and open. So, from the judges, congratulations.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is an honor, not just for me, for the entire team. We had a big team. Obviously, everything we do here at Verint is a team effort. So this goes to our product teams, R&D, our research, our go to market teams, and our leadership for trusting us, and most importantly to our customers. I think I want to dedicate this award to the customers, the early adopters who joined us in our pre-release, which kind of we work together with customers on real data, and they're the real heroes here who take something like Genie and turn it into AI outcomes, and they become heroes within their organizations. They're their AI champions. So this is exciting. So again,
Oh,
thanks.
can you imagine walking into the
Yeah,
office and go, "Hey guys, I just made us $5 million."
exactly. Right. Yeah. So
So,
everybody wants to.
pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you so much to the judges, to our customers, and to our teams at Verint. And thanks. And
Yeah.
for you,
Thank you.
obviously, for
Yeah,
you and for giving us the opportunity to participate.
absolutely. Thank you, Daniel, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Cheers. Thanks a lot.